Hi, welcome to another episode of Coffee and HEMA with me, Jamie McKeever, where I try and make a point about HEMA within the time it takes to make a coffee. I've got less time than normal today because Aaron Daniels suggested an alternative way of brewing my coffee, which I'm trying out, which should in theory be faster. Clearly he thought I talked too much in the previous videos or something like that. So we'll see. Today I want to talk about injuries and injury tolerance, and what level of injury we should accept as individuals, as club organizers, as just an acceptable risk. And the short answer is 0. Thanks for coming. Okay, the longer answer is that it depends a little bit on what we count as an injury. So when I say injury, I'm not talking about if we have like a slight light bruise that isn't particularly painful, you barely notice. Maybe we can accept that. But if it's even as bad as sort of a heavy bruising where it becomes it's severely painful, or if it's on a joint, difficult to move, certainly anything broken, broken skin, broken nail, a nail that you get lost, all of these things, I would consider minor injuries, but still injuries that would be unacceptable. And of course, anything that, is life-threatening, permanently damaging, clearly these are injuries and definitely shouldn't be tolerated. But even those minor injuries, I'm saying we shouldn't be tolerated. But what do I mean by that? Well, I don't mean that if somebody has hit somebody and they've hit them a little too hard and they've suddenly got a fairly severe bruise from it, that person should be kicked out and never do HEMA again. Absolutely not. But whenever an injury occurs, we should examine why, because something went wrong. And as I talked about before, we've got the mixture of protective gear, conventions, weapon, right, training weapon that we use, and any of these things could be at fault. It could be someone has gone against the conventions as well, done something against them, as well as the conventions themselves being wrong. And we should take an injury when it happens and look at it from all aspects and understand which of these things, which of these factors was the contributing factor to the injury occurring. So it could be protective gear fading, right? And we might think, is that protective gear high quality enough, or was it end of life and could we have noticed it? Could be that, the sword is way stiffer than it should be, and actually maybe you shouldn't be using swords like that, or heavier than it should be. Or perhaps people are hitting harder than expected, whether that is within or without conventions will matter. But I've heard many times people sort of say, oh, this person got injured, but it wasn't really anyone's fault. And that's bollocks, frankly. If someone is getting injured in the sport, it was somebody's fault. It was either the fault of the person organizing it for not putting proper controls and protections in place, or it was the fault of one of the two people involved. It could be the fault of the person who got injured, right? If I charge in, running at my opponent and run onto their sword, that's probably my fault, right? If I get injured on the back of that. Whereas if they do a massive thrust at me and the same result happens, that's probably their fault, right? And you can kind of look at these aspects to it. But in short, and I will be short today, even though my coffee hasn't brewed, 0 tolerance for injury. Every time an injury happens, we look at it, understand why, understand what could have been done differently to stop it. And again, whether this is now a banned piece of equipment because we think the equipment is unsafe, or too likely to fail. It could be changing your conventions, adapting it, or telling a person that they won't follow the conventions, telling them to adapt their behavior, but do something about it. Never accept that an injury is inevitable, never accept that an injury was no one's fault, and never accept that nothing can be done to solve this kind of thing going on in forward. That's it now. Thanks for watching. See you soon.